Okay, may the 8th era, nope, the 8th life of Demo in the second era begin. See, this is going to be so long. Oh, this life of Demo is just ages, absolutely ages. So let's hope I can make it in one shot, but there's a technical chance I will not. In which case, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have Joe anymore. Joe, come back to me. My life of Demoter. I need him. Okay, here we go. Sorry guys, this email is so long already, but I do not have time for an intro. I mean, like, I know I haven't done one in ages, but you're not going to miss it. You'll be fine. So, we're just going to move on. Starting from where we left off in the last email, I woke up and went on a run. However, my headphone died halfway through, which made me realize just how much I've come to appreciate listening to audiobooks as I run. Like, that run was majorly arduous afterward. And then, I got home and had quiet time and stuff, so that was good. But, like, headphones are super helpful. Like, if you just are listening to something, it's like multitasking while running. And it takes your mouth running and makes it less painful. Yeah, it's great. Anyway, yep. I went to work at 12, and then I finished the last life of the email at work. I then stopped at home, and did that before heading straight to Dazbog to meet with Karina, because she had graciously extended me an invite. However, upon entering the door of Dazbog's coffee shop, the piercing gaze of two baristas compelled me to purchase a drink, though I had entered with no such intent. So, I did that. I got a small Nutty Irishman, which is actually pretty good. I mean, it could just be because, it has sugar, and I haven't had that in a while. But, it was good, either way. For the next hour and a half, Karina and I worked on our respective things. She was trying to read 23 books this year because it's 2023. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. And I'm like, that's going to get real hard when it's 2080. But she's going for it, apparently. And so while she read, I debated Alan, which worked out pretty well because the coffee shop was kind of like noisy and not like super comfortable. So I wasn't able to focus a lot, but debates like sucked my attention in. So yeah, I was able to focus on debating. Yep. And yeah, that was what happened. Once I got home, I worked on one of my philosophical papers about divine simplicity, and I made some good progress. I then watched Face and Fork with the family while eating some canes, which my lovely mother was gracious enough to purchase for me. And then I went down to the basement and did a voice recording of the last Life of the Email. That was massive. It's not massive compared to this one. And then I watched a Tim McGrew video and went to bed. The next morning, I didn't do quiet time, but rather went on this new non-comfort this new non-comfort dental dentist. I decided that non-comfort dental dentists are better than dentists than comfort dental dentists. That's a tongue twister. And so my face was poked and prodded, and my teeth scraped with metal instruments, and it turns out I don't have a cavity. So that was nice. I mean, I was surprised, but it was nice. Because I totally thought I had one. After that, I went to work where I attended what I thought would be best called a group therapy session. See, one of the professors at the HES department committed suicide, and everyone was pretty shocked by that, understandably. And the whole department came together for his memorial service, where a licensed therapist kind of talked to people and helped them through things. So it kind of felt like a really big, small group, where there's like this therapist lady as the leader. It was definitely strange, but kind of cool. I mean, the advice the therapist gave was like super shallow. People were like, how do we deal with death and tragedy? And she was like, do it. And I was like, cool. Glad your advice is substantial. So I guess well, you don't have a Christian perspective though. Like that's kind of just deal with it. Like move on, have a good rest of life before you join that. Like you can't say that many too many like encouraging things. So yeah, it was pretty shallow advice, but like I was still surprised that the department put on the event, and it was pretty surprising to me that like so many people were willing to share instead of being an open group. Like they were pretty vulnerable. I'm not like gonna lie. And yeah, it was overall an odd but good experience. I didn't know the guy personally, so his suicide did not hit me too hard. But some people there clearly knew him very well, and there were even some Christians who would hit really hard because he was apparently like a super cool guy and like a devoted Christian. So they're like, why would he do this of all people? And so yeah, it was definitely an interesting event to attend for an hour and 15 minutes. After the group therapy session, I read through this frankly very confusing SCP article on metaphysical grounding, and I didn't get much out of it. I then worked on my philosophical papers once I got home, and continued to do so until Joe arrived, and then we played Magic, which was fun. We did that until William, the Great Varley, finally did call, and then William and I talked about philosophy stuff, which I definitely enjoyed. And, like, I swear, William is like a little me. Possibly a little bit more well-rounded than me, but like a little me. Like, I totally identify with him on so many levels. I just love his being. I wish I had a little me when I was me and little. Would have been nice. Yep. And then finally, on that day, I worked on the philosophical paper some more, and then I slept. The next morning, I woke up, went on a good old run, and then a quiet time in the morning. And then I got to work on some philosophical papers again. From there, I went to work and got free pizza, which is a pretty sweet deal because free is a good price. And it was purchased for like grad students. It wasn't even for me, technically. However, I kind of like awkwardly sat in the corner because it was purchased for grad students, and the grad students were talking. I was just like, well, I'm here to eat your pizza. And then, yeah, I got some more work on my philosophical papers before going home. And then upon reaching home, I got to spend some time with the family while watching Phineas and Ferb before catching up with Jordan. And I really wish I could be in New Zealand for that man right now. He's a solid man. Talked with Jordan for a while. I did. And then I took a bath. And then I watched some anime. And then I proceeded to go to sleep. The next day was Saturday, so no school. Woot woot. Instead of doing quiet time, I then went on a call with Tim McGrew, who's a very well-known apologist, if you don't know who he is. He basically specializes in historical data for the resurrection and stuff like that. And honestly, he does pretty darn good work, unlike a lot of apologists, which I'm pretty disappointed in. So yeah, basically I hopped on a Zoom call with him and asked him some questions, and he gave decent responses. I felt like the answers were a little hand-wavy, kind of like gestures to more robust answers, but I mean, that's fair. I had an hour, and I'm like, monumental question! Itty-bitty tiny space of time. So, yeah. Anyway, it was a decent talk. I talked with a subordinate dude afterward and asked if he'd be willing to email, and the guy just 100% dodged my question. He didn't even acknowledge it. And then, since, he's silenced just, I'm like, well, he didn't say no. So I emailed Tim himself and asked the same thing. And he didn't respond either. So, I'm pretty sure that's a no. Still, you would think that, people would have the decency to be like, yeah, sorry, I would love to, but I'm busy. But no, they just ghosted me. On both accounts, when I was like, could I please talk to Tim in, nicer, more flowery language? And they were just like, so, how's the weather? And I'm like, I asked you a question. And I gave them both very polite emails. They were spell checked 3 times. Whatever. I guess that's the world we live in now. People just don't confront problems. Anyway, as soon as I finished that call, I then began to fulfill my previously arranged obligation to help my dad lay flooring. He's remodeling the mini house Charlotte used to rent, and so I decided to help him put in floors. And it was basically the whole day. That's what I did. I did take I did take a break in the middle to pick up my books for classes, so that did happen. But otherwise, it was just working on the floor. And yeah, we started at 10 in the morning and finished 5, so 7 hours of work or so. We got the kitchen done, which is good. Once the sun went down, the family convened for some food and Phineas and Ferb. Promptly thereafter, which I joined on the typical Saturday night Minecraft, which has actually ceased since then, funnily enough. So it's not typical anymore. But during that time, I did tie Liam in an anime quiz, so I think I'm getting better. After that, after it all went down, it was pretty late, so I went to sleep. The morning thereafter, I went to Southgate Church. Afterward, had fancy funeral sandwiches, and while granted there being a funeral is sad, it did give us nice free sandwiches, so just saying, silver lining on a mushroom cloud. And yeah, after the service, we played Magic for a while until 1. And then, as Joe and I had devised to do long ago, we did a group hangout that included Karina, because she was feeling left out, which is fair, because she was. But, yep, we didn't have much of a plan. We just kind of hopped in the car and did random things. But to my delight, we did go to a library, and some of you I understand. Library. And we played a game of hand and brain chess, which is very fun. And it turns out that it doesn't matter how good your brain is if your hand sucks. So I'd be like, I have a genius idea in my hand, be like, that's not what we're doing. And so, yeah, it was kind of frustrating, but that's how it be. Yeah, it was a good time. After that, the peoples then dropped me off, and I went home and ate food, and then I worked my philosophy papers again until Noah and Melissa arrived. And see, I always seem to forget how interesting Noah and Melissa are. They're generally abnormal people, but in a good way. So yeah, I got to talk with them until 8, and then I went to CSU to meet Alan, and we whiteboard fought until 11 or so at night, because he had to go home to his small children's. And I have pictures of those lovely whiteboard fights, which are always eventful, and you should read them if you can, which you probably can't. But that's okay. Once I got home, I then prepared for the first day back to school, and I slept. Tuesday was the first day back to school, and I will say, overall, the first day went pretty well. I did go to the wrong lab, however, which was awkward, because I got to class late, and everyone did that class turn around look, and you're like, yeah. But overall, no biggie. However, I did not get very far in that same lab because I was late, because I was trying to figure out computer stuff. So yeah, I was a little behind. But otherwise, it was all good. I had some registration stuff to work out too, but I got that done. Yep. Overall, I would say the most off-putting experience of the first day was sitting through the ECE class again, because it's the first class I've ever had to retake in my life. It's really odd to have that happen. I don't know, you just kind of feel like your professors would teach your class in some unique way. You're special, your class is different. But nope, you go through the same class again, and it's the same examples, same points, same jokes. It's oh, this is just a routine for you. I'm not special. You didn't come up with this. You aren't cool. And yeah, you're just one face in a million to them. Also, serious deja vu. You're well, I feel like I heard this before. Kind of trippy. Anyway, the perk was that I already knew all the stuff, so I didn't have to pay attention. I was doing homework. Otherwise, school was pretty normal. I got a new coworker, and she seems nice. And other than that, the day was just long. Once I got home, I went over to play Magic with Joe. However, at the start of that time, Joe and Noah were just building decks, so I wasn't doing much. But later on, we got to have some of James's food, which was great, and we just kind of did random things. We played some Brawl, played some Minecraft. Well, we tried to play Minecraft, didn't actually end up working. And then I played some speed games with chess with Joe, and he beat me the first time, but every game after that I won. And see, chess.com has this thing where like removes pieces from the game to make it more even between differently rated players. So hypothetically, it was like even. So that was kind of rewarding since I won fair and pseudo square. About that time, Ben was rattling off ideas about what we should do, and no one was doing anything. So I was like, I'm just going to go home because I know what happens at this point. And the answer was nothing. And that's what did happen. Nothing. That's loud. However, on my way home, I got a strong sense of regret for not drifting with Caleb because see, earlier he offered, he was like, "You want to go drifting?" I was like, "Well, I don't want to push my car to where it could break," which is fair because my car definitely could, given its history of breaking. But I was like driving home. I was like, "What the heck is the Phoenix for if it's not for braking? Like that's what it's good at. It's its specialty." So like, it's not like my car is nice. Like if there was a car destined to be designed for drifting and taking risks, it was the Phoenix. So well, yes, I'm concerned it could break. Like, why would I not use the Phoenix or what the Phoenix is for? So yeah, I in the future would think I will take drifting opportunities. Once I got home, I kind of enjoyed the snowy landscape and drank some tea. I really do like the snow. There's something about the snow that just entrances me. After that, I finished what may have been the most boring anime yet, and then I went to sleep. The next day, I woke up to a snow day being announced, which on one hand was like, yay, because it's snow day, but on the other hand was just like, I got back from a month-long break yesterday. So, in that sense, it was mostly just disappointing. Especially because, like, the professors that, have snow days don't, like, remove the coursework that happens on the snow days. Like, oh, you were going to have a huge project due on the snow day? Guess you don't have to do the project anymore. Rather, it's just like, you have to do that later. It's just being forced to take on virtual debt. So, sure, you get the money now, but it isn't free. You're going to have to bust your butt to pay it off later. So, for that reason, I was much less psyched with the snow day, because I was like, I'm prepared to work. I've had a month-long break. But no, now you're just making me incur debt manually. Not manually. Mandatorily. Yep. And I can't do anything about it. However, since I was forced to take it off, I figured I might as well spend it enjoying it. And so, since Neil was back in town, I hung out with him. So I suited up and walked over to his place, because his place is so close I can walk to it. And I really do enjoy walking in the snow, especially while listening to my favorite instrumental songs. So, yep. Once I got to Neo's, me and him walked to King Supers to get food, and we just kind of caught up as we did so, because he'd been on his big Israel trip since break had started, and had only recently gotten back. We then returned with pizza, blackberries, croissants, and popcorn, and I showed him and Sydney the first 3 episodes of an anime called Patriot Moriarty, which so far they have both liked a lot. So I think I might actually find a hit with them. Then Neo and I attempt to try and power through the rest of Halo 2 on Legendary mode, which I forgot how stinking hard that was. The answer was we did not succeed, and I had to go home because I was like, I need to sleep because I have a school day tomorrow. And he was like, yeah, it's fair. And so we lost a lot of progress too. It was lame. But while we were doing so, Sawyer, Sydney's sibling, showed up wanting Neo to help them fix their car. And see, the heater had gone out in their car, and for some incomprehensible reason, they decided they had to fix it right now. In the snow, mind you. And so, of course, having worked in the cold and in the snow before, I'm like, what are you thinking? And second, I'm like, it's right before dark. But despite my very wise protestations, they would not wait for a more opportune time, because they were insistent. And it wasn't even like it was like something critical. It was just their heat was out. Like, if it's uncomfortable, it's more uncomfortable trying to fix your heat while you're heading to the snow and have to dig through the middle of your engine. That's more uncomfortable than just driving without heat. But no, they were insistent. So, they attempted to fix it, and now, of course, I found this vexing because it was manifestly stupid. And despite me telling them the reasons why they're stupid, they were just like, I don't care about your good reasons. They didn't say, like, your reasons were bad. They were just like, I don't care. And I'm like, but second, they had interrupted me and Neo's hangout time for a stupid thing. So, yeah, it was a sucky situation. But Neo, having the giant heart of silver/gold/corrupted copper, went out and helped them anyway, which I really don't think was the best thing to do because it communicates, it's okay if you make decisions that defy reason and hinder my well-being, as long as it's the case that I'm here to make them better for you. It should be the case that people know that they have consequences to their actions, and they have to follow through with them. But, whatever. It's fine. Anyway, he did it, and since I didn't have anything to do, I was like, okay, fine, I'll try and help as well. However, we were not able to finish the job because a bolt got stripped in the process, and so it ended up being like 45 minutes of car work in the cold for nothing. Which, of course, I knew what happened, but whatever. And so when I left, things were in a worse position than they started, and so I had to go get their car fixed at mechanic anyway, at least to my knowledge. So yeah, the whole situation was just lame, and of course, being right in terms of consolation prizes is very little in those scenarios, because it's like, well, I was right, but you didn't learn a lesson. I didn't get to hang out with Neo, and we were still cold. And I cut my finger. So, it was sad. Anyway, once I got home, I watched some Phineas and Ferb with a fan before finishing the writing of my philosophical papers, and I must say the series of papers is probably my finest yet. They are some very solid papers. They withstood some really heavy criticism, and I really think I wrote them very well. Then finally that night, I did some health research stuff, and I found that you can get your DNA tested and checked for like all known diseases, which I thought was really cool. And it was only like $300. But then again, it's $300, so I'm not sure I'm actually gonna do it. The day thereafter, I woke up at 9 and did school stuff till 7 at night, so it was a pretty full day. And I worked in the EMEC, did my lab, went to work twice because I have to go back 2 times for the day. And then during the second time, I ripped a giant hole in the butt of my pants. So I had to ask my boss, hey, could I go home and get new pants? Which was awkward as far as the conversation goes. But upon retrieving my pants, I did carry out my shift. Once I was done with that, I then watched Fantasy Forever with the Fam and worked on some final touches on those big philosophy papers I mentioned earlier before watching a bit of anime and then ceasing to consciously exist. I then awoke. And the next morning, I slept in because, I could. And then I got a paper signed for an assignment before going to the EMEC instead of doing my normal routine. And I'll tell you now that, at this point, there isn't a morning routine. Quiet time, exercise, prayer journaling doesn't happen. Every single one of those days, with 2 exceptions, this entire semester, I have spent in the EMEC or getting math tutoring. It's just majorly sucked. And I've been extremely disappointed, but I don't know what to do. So maybe I'll rant about it later. I won't. I know the end of this email. I don't rant about it later. I'll rant about it now. This is dumb. This is not how I want to live my life. I want to live my life well-balanced, healthy human, which I did the first semester. It was beautiful. But I took on too much this semester, and it's a mistake. But I can't, if I just slack off in the class and take the time doing other things, that just means I prolong the issue because the next semester I'll have to stack stuff extra. But my thought is if I work really hard this semester, eat all the things I care about, I can regain the things I care about next semester. Which could just be a way of coping with the fact that, the things I care about are gone. I'm not exercising or doing, quiet time, which sucks. But, what do you do? I can't just be well, I'll just fail that class. I mean, I could, but then again, it just prolongs the issue. So yeah, deeply sad. Not how I want things to go. And I made an error. I didn't know I made an error until the semester started, but I made an error. I'll schedule things better next semester. I'm very intent on that. Anyway, I went to class. I then worked on some SolidWorks stuff, which I must say is probably my favorite skill in this semester because you can do so many cool things when you can model things in 3D software. And then I barely made it to work on time to get the leftover... To get the leftover guac and chips from the dinner they had. They had a Chipotle turn. I just ate a lot of guac and chips. I then went to more classes, did more homework for about an hour, then went straight to a meeting with Caleb where he helped me pick out a snowboard rental because I decided to join the Myers and the Jameses for snowboarding/skiing. And basically the story behind that was this. Benj. Do you want to go skiing? Me. Nah, it's too expensive. Benj. Alright. Me 24 hours later. You know what? I changed my mind. Benj. Nice. See, what's surprising about the story is it's not surprising. But no, I actually did say no at first because it was cold and expensive and monopolizes the whole day of my week. But then I thought about it and I was like, when do I ever get to do things like this with people I enjoy? And so, for novelty's sake, I decided to join them. And it was also for novelty's sake that I decided to learn how to snowboard instead of ski. Because, I'd skied a few times in the past and, I rollerblade a lot. And so, rollerblading maps to skiing in a pretty one-to-one way. So I was like, I'll probably be good, skiing. Though not good compared to them. Holy cow, they're all just pros. Speeding down mountains at death speeds. I would have been bad to them. I didn't know that. I thought it would be okay, but I would have just been bad compared to Annie Meyer. Also, Lily learned how to, ski at, one day. And she was going so fast. Curse you, Lily, and your inevitable Myers skiing skills. Curse you, Perry the Platypus. Okay, I'm sorry, that wasn't necessary, but I just had to. Okay, anyway, so I decided to learn how to snowboard, and it looks cooler, so that's also a reason. And Caleb helped me run my board. We wanted to run inside this massive mall, which didn't know existed before. It's called Shields, apparently. There's a Ferris wheel inside. Who puts a Ferris wheel inside a mall? First of all, what are you going to see? Second of all, what's the point? Who wants a Ferris wheel anyway? But apparently, it's there because it makes money. I then bought some goggles necessarily because people had goggles. I didn't know they had goggles, so I just ended up buying my own goggles. And then I went back and attended Friday movie pizza night thing because 3 seconds before the critical turn in which I had to turn at my house or go to Joe's house, Caleb was like, "Go to Joe's house, your house!" And I was like, "Joe's!" And that was it. We went to Joe's house. At Joe's, we played Brawlhalla and a bit of chess, and Joe beat me, and I was very confused, but then I figured out he was using Stockfish, which is a chess computer, and I felt much better. I then tried to beat Stockfish knowingly, and I lost, as you might expect. Once I got home, I had a mini debate with Alan, and then I finally watched an episode of anime before going to bed. The next morning, I woke up way too early and piled on the James' car for skiing, and in my case, snowboarding. We all kind of chilled on the way there. We didn't talk, which was a little bit sad, but kind of expected. At that point, I got on a philosophy call, because my Saturday night philosophy calls still happen, and as things were getting good, I lost service, so that was unfortunate. I then learned how to snowboard with Benj, and me and him basically stuck together the whole time as we traversed the course many, many times. And it's honestly pretty surprising how fast you can learn and go from something like, wow, I cannot stand up, and I've never done this before, to wow, I can go pretty fast. So, our improvement was pretty impressive. However, of course, the cost was a very bruised butt and sore wrists, so I can't say it was all pleasant memories. Still, I had a good time. On the way back from snowboarding, Mr. James dropped Caleb and I off at Wendy's, the only restaurant that would do, of course. And then we met up with Ben, who had driven out to Wyoming to meet us. After we got some food, we then drove the rest of the way to the Hobo Hot Springs. We sat in the hot springs and observed drunk people do many dumb things. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, drunk people are pretty great entertainment, like comedy gold. However, one woman just like hopped in this tiny pool with us, which did not have room for her, mind you, and got like way too close and personal for my taste, and absolutely had no sense of social etiquette, which was great when you got to see other people be uncomfortable. When you were uncomfortable, it was not as great. So yeah, other than her, it was a good time. There was this spot in the river that was like perfect, except for when it got really cold. But it was very nice most of the time, and yeah, it's not always that way. But on the way home, I was very tired, so I had Ben dropped off at home instead of James's, because even though my car was at James's, because I was just like, I might crash if I drive home. I was just so tired. The next morning, I skipped church to catch up on sleep before spontaneously hanging out with Alan's friend, Neo's friend Alan, because Neo turned me down, to walk with me as I walked to Joe's house to pick up my car. And I hadn't really premeditated it, but it actually worked out really well, because his house on the way, and like he was available. And so I got to know Alan better. I got to hear like his story in a 45-minute nutshell, and it was really good. However, once I reached the car, I had the brilliant idea to open the sunroof, forgetting it just snowed, and so I dumped snow all over Alan's bald head and my personage. So that was a pro move. Anyway, after chaperoning Alan back to his house, my car was then returned to his convenient possession. This location of convenient. It was returned to my driveway. I then ate some food before going to Neo and Sydney's, where they joined Alan and John to give a very lengthy description of their trip to Israel. And I mean, to be fair, I literally asked for it, but still it was very long and kind of painful. However, it was also clear that it drudged. It drudged up some things that hadn't been worked through as a result of them spending 2 weeks together. And as I talked Finnish, I tried to help them through that because I was like, you guys have some issues you need to talk about. And it also made me appreciate just how well the squad synergized together. Like, we were just fantastic. Any squad members, you are just little baby gods because you just did so well. Compared to like any other younger adult group, we just were epic. We had like so good conflict resolution. Anyway, I'm proud of us. After facilitating that conversation, I then asked Sydney to cut my hair, and she obliged. I then went home and helped Grace with math, which I've done a lot now. And then she, nope. And then I proceeded to have a debate with Alan over Discord. And that's how I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning to do my time in the tool crib down the EMEC. Got some homework done during that time. I then went to school and did all the things. I got food with Squad Noah and caught up with him a bit at Wendy's, of course. I then tried doing homework before going to Ratio. Oh, no, I didn't do it at Wendy's. That was before. We just went to King Soopers and we got food. And we shared it with Ratio. I tried to do homework while waiting for Ratio. I didn't really succeed. And then Alan and I hashed out things for like 5 hours, and we have whiteboard pictures of that. So if you want to read them, you can. The next day was Tuesday, and as such was a class of ECE. But thank the goodness of the Lord for this, our class was moved to Clark instead of Engineering 100, which is a very big bueno because the old classroom was garbage. After class, I went home, watched a bit of anime, ate some food before going to school, and then doing the typical Tuesday routine over at Joe's. Wednesday was a bit unusual, as I had an advisor meeting in the morning, and I also read Tim McGrew's stuff. See, apparently he thought my question about the parousia, that's how you say it, was actually formidable, because he didn't respond to any of my other questions, but he sent me some resources on that. And so I read through one of those, and I was like, here's my thoughts on what you said. And he didn't get back to me. And he still hasn't gotten back to me, so he's probably never going to get back to me. I don't know why I expected anything more. Like, he's an extremely well-known apologist. And, like, the magnitude of reason is very exceptional in being willing to talk to his, like, supporters. But still, I was, like, disappointed. I think ghosting is irresponsible. Like, just tell someone, hey, I'd like to stop talking to you, or no. Like, that's not that hard. Like, how is it the case that in the professional world, ghosting becomes a standard? That's dumb. Like, Ben talks about it, too. Like, he just gets ghosted by companies. I'm like, dude, you're a literal company. Just tell your employee no. You could literally use 2 words and I'd still be satisfied. Anyway, yep. So, after responding to Tim and then not ever getting that back, I then went to my classes and did some homework, and I had canes and watched Fantasy Football with family. And then because it was Wednesday, I went over and hung with Nia before going to Magic Club and ran out the day that way. See, the thing is, I don't often enjoy Magic Club. I just do it because I'm the president, and I feel I have an obligation to go. And the reason I don't often enjoy it is because I either play a non-Vannifar deck and lose, because my deck aren't valued at over $100 each, or I play Vannifar and sometimes win, but everyone accuses me of playing Solitaire. So it's like a lose-lose situation. Either you lose the game or you lose the people, and losing isn't a fun thing to do. However, I don't mind losing if I'm playing with people I really enjoy with, but the problem is most people in Magic Club aren't super well-rounded or wholesome. They're nerds, a category of person that are nefarious for not being the most charming demographic. And yes, I know what that says about me, but we're not talking about that. And thus, there's only a handful of people I would actually want to play Magic with, and the odds are, even if I can play with one of those people, I have to simultaneously play with people I don't want to play Magic with. So yeah, as an all-around situation, it's usually a bummer. But to be fair, there are notable exceptions. The next day I was feeling really tired after a wear and tear of the week, but I did push through and did school and work as always. However, I did do something unusual. I went back to Anime Club. See, Hip Hop Dance, which happens at the same time as Anime Club, was canceled that week, and the Weebs were hosting an anime intro competition, which, as you know, I am deeply attracted to. Thus, I attended. The funny thing is that I was actually originally part of the group that literally won every single round and got first place every single time. But I was like, nah, I'm gonna win on my own. And thus I divorced myself from their weektacularness, and I discovered that I was not as good as them. Which, when one dude has literally watched 2 years worth of anime, like 2 years, do you know how much time that is? So much time. I don't feel too bad. But yeah, I placed in the top three for 4 of the 6 rounds, if I remember correctly. And like, that's pretty good when you have a group of 30 plus weebs you're fighting against. But I'm still kind of salty I never won. Regardless, I did have a good time. And then I worked out after that. And after my workout, I went home and I watched a bit of anime and went to bed. The next morning, I got a little bit of extra sleep, which can actually make a world of difference. Then I went and got Diffie Q tutoring for 2 hours before eating food, doing work, and then being late to dynamics class because I had a hectic day at work. And I lost track of time. I did more classes and then spent 2 hours in the computer lab doing solid work stuff before finally getting home and watching a bit more anime before going to bed. The following day was a day of respite, as it was a Saturday, and thus I slept until 10 and then did a bit of car maintenance, got groceries and gas before going home and eating while watching some anime. Thereafter, I carpooled with Joe to the Myers house as they were out of town. The Myers parents, the Myers themselves. Okay, I'm going to restart that. I went to the Myers house because the small Myers were in town and the large Myers, the very large ones, not in that way. The oldest Myers, there we go. Man, I wish I could edit this. Oh, we're gone. And so there was like a board game night. Man, this is unfortunate. All right. Anyway, we played Seven Wonders, which was decent, but it didn't really hold my attention very well because it just feels so simple after playing Magic. And then Joe and Ben were also not paying attention as Sam tried to describe the rules, but they were struggling, man. They were 12 at heart for realsies right then. After that, I then played some Magic, and I died super fast. So while I was waiting, I invited Johanna to go on a snowwalk with me because snowwalks are cool, which I both regret and don't regret. I regret it because it was super cold, and I did not properly equip myself for the elements, and thus the whole time I had to weigh the value of the conversation against my desire for warmth. But I don't regret it because it's the first time I had a good conversation with Johanna, and she was pretty interesting. Like, she was able to answer some curiosities I had about her, and I got to know her a bit more. And it's certainly an odd phenomenon when you watch people grow and to be more interesting. Like, there's a point at which kids start thinking critically and then stop being kids. And of course, that point, is after they become rational. Because, before that point, they aren't interesting. But after that point, well, they're interesting. So yeah, I discovered Johanna was interesting. And that was kind of cool. However, as epic as that discovery was, around the 4th loop, my desire for warmth exceeded my desire for good conversation, so I went back inside. And Johanna agreed. I then played more Magic and engaged in a game of hand-brain chess, which I thought was pretty fun. I was the hand this time, which was an odd mix-up. However, I made some really dumb mistakes, actually. And thankfully, Caleb came, though, and became my brain, and we came back and won. So, good job, Caleb. You're a pro brain. After that, Caleb, Benji, and I all drove around and got Wendy's burgers, and we got these fancy Wendy's drinks, which were very good. And then we picked up Joe and Benj and went drifting a bit before calling it a night at around 2 in the morning. Sunday, I attended church, and we all played Magic. I discovered my car had a voracious coolant leak. The entire reservoir emptied just by driving from home to church. So I dumped another reservoir with coolant in it, because I always keep spare coolant in my car. And then I headed to the Wades, because I had to get there, and I committed to go there, and I didn't have any other way to get there if I didn't drive there. So upon arriving, I then got a 500 milligram dose of awkwardness, because those gatherings, while they used to be lighthearted and natural, are now just so awkward. You can tell no one enjoys them. And we're all here out of a sense of obligation, duty, and tradition. But man, it is hard to stretch how awkward that room was. Like it was tangible. Liquid, in fact. Every breath was a mixture of wanting to say something just to end the silence, and stifling death, knowing that if you did so, you would commit social suicide. So, yeah, it was not the best experience. However, after that ended, I went over to Neo's house for D&D character planning and food. Then we also witnessed the showing of the new, well, what's at the time new, movie Puss in Boots, which was actually pretty decent. I give it about a 7 on an anime scale. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not an anime, but, given the anime movies I've watched so far, it's pretty good. Once I got back, I then, with a lot of help from Neo, finished my character for the Star Wars campaign, and I gotta be honest, it's probably my favorite character mechanically I've ever played. Like, he hits like a truck. He's able to do like 28 damage on a single turn, and because of the special feature he has, he can do it twice around. He's like super good at long range, so he can snipe, and he's super good close range, so he can dagger. And he's also stinking fast. He can move like 240 feet in a turn, if he wants to. And that's like anywhere on the map. So like, it's like teleportation almost. As far as like just the mechanics of the build go, it's just actual perfection. As for the personality of the character, See, I tried to do something different and play like a quiet, suave character, but I don't think it's going very well. Yeah, we'll have to see though. Maybe I can get like the subtlety down. But right now he's just like quiet. I'm not much of the suave. So anyway, I'll see if I can roleplay him well eventually. Regardless, I'm super stoked for the character build. Like it was basically all that I wanted to have happen, and yeah, it was a good time. After that, I just went home and I watched an episode of anime and this left. The next day, I woke up to Frost and Chill hardcore blessing the Lord. Like holy cow, it was like -10 or something. And I managed, despite the cold, to motivate myself to go to the gym and work out, which was good. At which point, I finished the Silent Planet audiobook that I started and began a new audiobook. Now, before I move on to that new audiobook, I want to make it clear that William is full of lies. The book was meh at best, and none of the promised effects occurred. I have no luscious beard, so I'm salty. Anyway, I started listening to this apparently classic book called The Book Thief. It was like rated highest on 5 different things. Not the highest, it was like among the highest. And like, I don't know what makes it classic, but it was very odd. Like, and was, it is. I'm still reading it. Well, listening to it. So maybe all it takes to be classic is to say things in a very confusing and nonsensical manner, and then people become convinced there's like sublime meaning in every iota, and thus deem your work profound. Like, it'll say something like, I never liked the taste of blue, especially not with the pungent smell of grass. And I'm like, okay, I get you're being poetic, but like, blue doesn't have a taste. Trust me, I know differential equations. I'm trustworthy. It's gonna be my catchphrase. I know differential equations. So yeah, the whole book is like that, but often worse. And so, in this case, it's actually to my benefit because I get so confused. I have to like really pay attention to be like, what is he trying to say? And then I get so engrossed, I forget I'm running. So it works out for me. But it's just like, what? How is this classic? I don't understand. What do you mean the sky tastes red? What do you mean? Once I finished that, I went home and had a quiet time, which was nice. I then started my day properly and did a gambit of usual activity. I then went to Rash where once again me and Alan fought out, and I had pictures of a whiteboard so you cannot see because this is audio. I then, with my brain super exhausted, because Alan was being super stubborn and it bugged me, I then went home and slept. The next morning, I had standard Tuesday. I did class, have a difficult lab, which I still think is dumb, because who needs a lab for a math class? It's like math is the antithesis of like lab. Lab means practical hands-on stuff. Math is not that, but whatever. I then watched some food and ate some anime, and I did that intentionally. I did not misspeak it when I read it, which was also very impressive. I gotta spice things up, man. And then I did CAD work, and then work, and then Joe picked me up, given my car had a coolant leak, and we did Tuesday night stuff. The next morning, I went to math tutoring, which was very challenging for me to understand. I had a hard time with that. And then the rest of my routine occurred with the small exception of dynamics. I got a guy to play chess with me, and I absolutely crushed him. He was like a 900 rated guy, and he has now moved seats, and I haven't seen him since. So I don't think I made a very good impression. Anyway, dynamics was a bit of an oxymoron because it was actually interesting. Not dynamics. That's a typo. Ha! I'm not going to edit that. After Diffie Q was an oxymoron because it was a very riveting math class. Like, that day the professor decided to just go in, like, all out on applications and not actually teach us math. And it was so cool. Like, the class went by in a flash for me. I was actually glued to my seat. Because, like, math is so cool. I can tell you how many fish are in a pond. And how many fish will be in a pond if you give me the rate of fish reproduction, rate of fish death. And I can tell you the carrying capacity of that pond. Like, that's cool. You want to know how many fish are in your pond. I know you do. So, yeah, I was totally pumped to do math. I mean, that only lasted till, like, my next homework where I was like, math is dumb again. But, until that point, I was like, yeah, math. I then did homework until about 6 in the evening, and then I went to an event that bore no relevance to me whatsoever, but they gave me free Chipotle, so I sat in it. However, I did get there early, and even then, they were basically out of Chipotle. So I got, like, some food, but, it was kind of like, wow, you need more Chipotle. Once that ended, I got home and helped Dad move boxes before going to Magic Club and playing Magic till midnight, and then I temporarily died. However, I resurrected the next morning, and upon my resurrection, discovered it was a Thursday. Thus, I had classes, and then I got to have an extra hour break because I switched my shift of work with Sophie, because it was better for her. And during that time, I reread Chapter 4 of Owen's book before going to EMAC. Then I went to work, did some voice training with Sydney, and then I showed up at Hip Hop Dance Club. However, as of late, Hip Hop Dance Club has just been a lot of dance routines. Like, sure, I now can dance a lot of dance routines, but I've not gained any significant skill sets, as far as I can tell. They just taught us, like, do this when this song hits. And so, like, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep going, because I've given it a decent shot, like, 6, 7 months now? And I do not feel like I've improved in skill, so I probably will stop. Regardless, once I got home, I ordered myself a Wendy's burger and then watched one of the SAO movies in my dungeon, and I really need to spend more time down here, because I am here now. Because it's just such a cool space. Like, I don't often have cause to, because I'm, like, never home, and much less home and in my dungeon. But, like, it's just such a cool place. I'm glad I built this world. This dungeony world. Grace did join me for the movie, though she didn't really know what was happening because she hasn't watched SAO, and so that's kind of funny. And honestly, it was a pretty good movie. I was kind of surprised at the quality. The next morning, I did a shift in the tool crib down the EMEC, which I don't think I've actually explained that. I'll explain later. I then had a bit of extra time between classes before going to work, and then, doing classes. And after that, I just did small things like cleaning laundry and all that jazz. After that, I went to Joe's and played chess with Noah before we all traveled to the pre-release at Griffin, which was Noah's first pre-release, as well as Sam's. But he forgot to register, which was really sad, because while normally that wouldn't be a problem, in this particular case, the supply of cards was extremely limited, so they wouldn't hand out any ones to people who weren't registered, which means that Noah didn't get to play, which was super, super sad. Hence, we all kind of pitched in and gave him a few consolation prizes. Also, Sam pulled a little $60 card in his first try. So dumb. He actually slurped all my good pulling luck. So, yeah. Then Joe and I all did pretty well. Joe got actually super close to winning it all. He was one misplay away from winning the entire tournament, and so he was super salty about that. But overall, it was a good time. The next day was Saturday, and so in the morning I talked with my philosophy papers about, I talked about my philosophy papers with Matt and Alan, and that's who ended. I then drove up Thompson's Canyon to go join some airsoft with Noah, Deep Voice Noah, mind you, and that was a ton of fun. In the past, a lot of airsoft games I've been really cautious and take risks, because I didn't want to get shot, because it hurts. But Alex 2.0, he's screw caution, and so I just went for it, and man, it was so much more fun. I've discovered that as long as you rush forward with confidence, if someone else is even in a strategically better position, if they're the cowering type, you just win. It doesn't matter if they have a spectacular cover or they're up a 10-foot cliff. If whenever you shoot in their general direction, they hide and they don't shoot back, then you just always win. Because that's what everyone did. And I was wondering how Noah always beat us, but that's just the answer. Because for some dumb reason, even though he's running across the open field, and I'm behind 5/8 of my body is covered behind a rock, I'm the one that cowers when he shoots? Pfft, no, not anymore. And so that's how we always won. But now I did that to them, and it was great. Also, there were 2 rounds in the game mode where we had to protect the one. I didn't have to protect it. I was the assassin. There were people trying to protect the president, and 2 snipers went and hide in the canyon and kill the president as they try and advance past the canyon. And I got fantastic hiding places. So I was totally laying down a hail of BBs, and they had no idea where I was shooting from. So after 100 shots, I finally got to their meat sack wall, and I just won. But the real win was just hitting them with 99 BBs before I actually won. It was just fantastic. Oh, so much fun. So, yeah, definitely my favorite airsoft game so far. I got home then, and I jacked up my car to figure out what the coolant leak was, and I also took Mom and Dad's cars to Neo's Alan's place to throw for his mandatory party. So okay, that's confusing. I jacked up my car to find out the coolant leak, and then after that I took Mom and Dad's car to Alan's party. I probably explained this before, but Alan has to throw a mandatory party or get kicked out of his house, so yeah, it's part of the lease. So yeah, from there, there were good enough people at the party, and we played a bunch of Smash Bros. And Halo, and everyone was pretty evenly matched, honestly. And that went late, so once that ended, I just went and slept. The next morning, I had a pseudo quiet time, and then I proceeded to work on my car for 3 hours and 30 minutes, and I did actually fix it, but the way I did it was kind of dumb. See, way back when I replaced my radiator, I bought the cheapest radiator because, of course, as all the experts know, cheap is cheap. However, the radiator they gave me had a cross-threaded coolant plug. Now, of course, at the time, I was young in my mechanic years, and I did not realize it was cross-threaded. I just thought the coolant plug was different than my original radiator. It was the sort of plug that only goes halfway in, which in hindsight is really dumb. But I have nothing to say in my defense there. So yeah, ever since my car got its radiator replaced, I've just had to deal with a coolant leak. I was like, this just must be normal. And so I just accepted it. And I would refill my reservoir every, so often. However, during the really cold spell, all the coolant broke loose. All coolant broke loose. That's how I want to say it, but now the joke doesn't work because I didn't say it right. And so I then discovered that my plug was cross-threaded, and so I came up with a solution. Stuff a bunch of water-resistant tape in the hole. Actually, I wrapped a bunch of Teflon tape around a plug, and I stuck in there. So yeah, once I wrapped as much tape as I could around the plug, I just shoved it in. I technically threaded it part of it the way, but it was mostly just shoving it in. So same diff. And to this day, it has held the coolant, so you can't argue with results. And I'm not touching that again. After I finished that car repair, I played this VR game where you take a bunch of copies of yourself and use it to power a tree by feeding it fruit. And it wasn't bad. I then did my taxes, which was very easy. I don't know why everyone complains about taxes. It's because, at least for a normal populace, it's super simple. And I then sorted my remaining anime recommendations into a list of shows I can actually watch and shows that were actually clean, which made them a lot smaller, 10 or less. Then, to round out the night, I played some more of my VR game, which I know made it sound weird because you're feeding fruit to trees, but it's not that weird. It's just fairly normal. My only qualm with the show is that the puzzles are all very practical puzzles, how accurately can you throw this virtual bomb fruit across the room before your duplicate catches it, and then can throw it into the Explodinator before it explodes and kills you. So, it was interesting, but, kind of repetitive, because it's it's kind of hard to throw things in VR. It's a challenging skill set. The following morning, I woke up at 7:30 for my mech lab. I then worked on my brass piece for 2 hours and 30 minutes before bringing it out of tolerance and thus having to buy a new piece and call it quits for the day. So I failed. I then ate food and watched some anime, did homework till ratio, wherein Alan did not show because he was sick, and so Liam and I did anime quizzes instead. And this random dude I haven't ever seen and before or since just showed up and he joined us. And he did really badly. But he gave me an interesting anime recommendation, so I'm looking forward to watching that at some point in time. I then went on a run at the CSU gym, listened to more of my weird book, and then watched an episode of anime before going to bed. The following morning was school, the typical routine. 'Twas upon this day I need my car officially fixed, because, for a bit there it seemed like it was leaking coolant because the radiator was, well, the reservoir was still lowering, but I think it was just getting the air out of the system. I then joined the Southgate Friends, aka Sam, Noah, Benj, Joe, and in this case Jake, for a mini pre-release. See, since Noah didn't participate in the real pre-release, but mostly because Joe got garbage pulls and he was salty, Joe organized a second Just With Us pre-release event where he bought a bunch of deck boxes of the set, and we all paid for them, of course. And then we had a mini tournament and everything. And I built this 4-color deck with 10 things of land, which, if you're not aware, is abysmally low. And I actually did really well. So, I mean, I lost the tournament, but, the deck did pretty great, especially for being a 4-color, 10-land deck. The next morning, I tried my best to make the brass piece once again, and I once again failed. I then had a slower morning because I failed fairly early in the process, so I had extra time, And then at work, Jess, my boss, was in a really bad mood, and so I had to work very hard to try not to step on her toes, and I didn't really succeed. You might be the most courteous and considerate person, but if someone is in a really bad mood, everything you do annoys them. So yeah, I will tell you, hyper-emotional and hypersensitive females that can fire you at will are very scary, and very good at inducing stress. After that, I then took a statics test, which for some reason I always call it statics. It's actually not statics. It's just I had the class in the same class. I had my statics class, and the professor was the same. It was actually dynamics. So after dynamics, I took a dynamics class. And then after dynamics, I did CAD work in the computer lab for a few hours. Thereafter, I got myself a Wendy's burger and went to Magic Club. The first game was super slow and painful, but the second was probably the funnest game of Magic I've had at Magic Club. So yeah, like I said, there are exceptions, and sometimes I really do enjoy my time there. And I finished that whole event around 11:30. School and lab, the procedure was what occurred the next day. After that, I studied for the metrology exam, which is literally an exam about how you can measure stuff. You'd be surprised at how different how many different ways of measuring there are, and just how hard it could be to use them, especially within a thousandth of an inch. So, if you think about it, it's pretty cool that I have an exam that's where here's a chunk of metal. How long is it? Never thought I'd be taking these kind of tests when I was in high school, But yeah, at this point, that's kind of how my education is, because it may be genuinely hard, but at least it's things I actually going to use. Everything I'm learning, I'm genuinely interested in and can see a direct application. Of course I need to measure stuff. How am I supposed to, model things if I can't measure it? And so forth. So yeah, school is definitely way better where you don't have to take random Spanish classes just because the dumb requirements say so. Anyway, after studying for the metrology exam, I went to work and did work and got some then got some singing training from Sydney and then hung out with Neo and her. After that, I did some homework before going home to help Grace with her math, and then I watched an episode of anime before bed. The next day I woke up for my tool crib shift, and I guess I still haven't explained that, and now I will explain it, see. Basically, the tool crib is where a bunch of us Mech 200 students have to check out tools to each other, and if you don't, then if you don't make it 3 shifts, you just fail the class. But, as a side note, a lot of my courses have been really dumb by the requirements, if you miss 3 labs, you auto-fail the class. If you miss a tool crib, you auto-fail the class. And I'm like, yeah, that is motivating, but I just feel like I'm reading Aquinas. There's no gradations. He's like, you thought about maybe possibly taking that bread from the homeless man? Death! And I'm like, that's how it feels. Aquinas just says everything is punishable. Everything's a mortal sin. Everything. Everything. You have guaranteed committed 7 mortal sins in the last 10 seconds. Everything is a mortal sin. Anyway, aside from disproportionate punishment associated with tool crib, the other thing is it's just dumb because you literally do nothing while you're in there. So you're supposed to make sure students check in clean tools, but no one actually tells you off if you don't. Because the fact is we're all forced to be there, and no one cares inherently. And we care much more about relationship with our fellow classmates than the state of brass shits on drill. It's like having prisoners enforce prison regulations. It's why? You aren't. I'm being forced to tell the other prisoners to do things, and I live with the prisoners, not the prison guard, so I'm more interested in their well-being than. Anyway, it's a weird analogy. The point is that no one cares and no one listens either. So yeah, the other thing is we all know none of us have any more authority or knowledge than we do, so we don't respect them as people we have to be accountable to, because the fact is we've all been the person in the tool crib and we all have no idea what we're doing. So yeah. Anyway, one time a student was like, here, the stuff I'm returning. I was like, oh, could you clean that? And they were like, no. And they walked away. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? I have no power. If they say no, then that's as far as it goes. So I end up cleaning it myself. So yeah, the tool crib is dumb because you have no power and no one listens and it's dumb. Anyway, if it weren't for the fact that I was starting with failing the class, I wouldn't go, but I was starting by failing the class, so I went. I attended my shift. I then did more study for the metrology exam, which bears mentioning is also unique in format because they literally give you access to the pieces of metal you're going to measure and the tools to measure them a week in advance. And so you can like write down any values you take. So it's kind of like getting the test a week before the test day, and then you just do your best to find the answers on your own. So you would think that would make you do well, but no, I got a 70. And I even studied like for it a lot and triple checked my answers. So I guess it's just hard, or I'm just bad. But I think that was actually pretty close to the average. So yeah. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. That day I studied for the exam. After studying, I then did work at work, which is abnormal because I don't usually do work at work. I usually just study at work. And then I did classes, and then studied for a measure exam again. And then because I was tired, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do my dynamics homework. And so I just yeeted it and watched an anime movie with the fam instead, called Wolf Children, which is actually very interesting. I then caught up with Jordan Bartley for a while, which was bueno, before watching a bit of anime and going to bed. The next morning I woke up and picked up Braden, and we grabbed food and walked across a frozen over river. However, because I wasn't confident that this would hold, I did it barefoot because I was like, I don't want to get my shoes soaked and then have to walk away across there. But if you didn't know, ice is cold. Who would have thunk? So we hiked up the Airsoft Canyon some more and found a good rock to eat our food on and listen to music at. But the issue was, as I was climbing up, I jumped the last little bit and I smacked my knee into a rock really hard. And it still hurts to this day. Like, it's still healing. It was like a month ago. So it was a regrettable mistake. But I just kind of like bit my teeth. That doesn't work. Bit my tongue. Yeah. I just kind of bit my tongue and grinned and bared it as we listened to good instrument music. And it was still really nice. But Brain really didn't get the vibe. He was like, this is kind of boring. We're just listening to music and not talking. I loved it, though. So yeah, that's how I came up with the idea to do vibe sessions, though, which I'm going to do one today. Fun story. So that was super relaxing and actually fantastic, but because my knee hurt, I called it a day a bit early. After that, me and him played some Magic, ate some food, and then I joined in on the Ratchet Christie dodgeball night, which, first off, I'm surprised Ratchet Christie did dodgeball because they're all a bunch of nerds. But second, it was a total blast. And I don't think I'm the only one that thought that. Like, I think we all thought it was great. It was also because I was the best, though, because among nerds, I'm a bit of an athletic god. So, yeah, that was great. And then I gave myself a handicap where I played in this itchy bunny head. I'm pretty sure I was an intimidating bunny, because I still won. Anyway, I wish I had a picture of that. Once I got home, I played some Catan with the fam, and then took a bath, and then watched some good anime. The day thereafter, I attended church, played Magic with Joe, and we did some 1v1s while the other groups played together. Then we played some D&D, and I took Neo and City out for dinner with the help of John. After D&D, it's kind of like a thank you for all the times they've given us dinner. However, unfortunately, everything was closed, so we ended up just giving them boba and Wendy's instead of something nice. However, I also got boba, and the boba tastes exactly like those hard banana candies, which they used to have in malls. Do you remember those? You get them like, you put a little quarter in, and you get like a handful of assorted fruit candies. I know there's only like 2 of you in the world that just remember those, but for those of you that do, I know you just appreciate that reference. So yeah, anyway, I haven't thought of those candies in like 10 years. Isn't that strange to think about, like, the fact that you just thought about a thought you hadn't thought about in like 10 years? I mean, to be fair, I don't know if I thought about it in 10 years because I haven't been keeping track. But I'm very confident I did not think about the hard mall banana candy for quite some time. So yeah, it's kind of strange. And while that is completely beside the point and holistically irrelevant, it is relevant to me. Because this is my left email, I decide what matters. And it matters to me. Feel my passion. Anyway, the dinner was pretty much a flop, and the boat was super gross. And yeah, the event kind of ended on a high note. But at least we tried. Too bad the thought doesn't count so much as to make your boba not taste like banana. Once I got home, I then finished the anime I was on. I was searching for some new anime, which was surprisingly difficult given my Keshia standards, and then I slept. The next day, I woke up on Monday to do some work on my brass piece. However, once again, I brought up tolerance and thus had to buy a new piece of stock, so I failed again. I then got a little more time to eat because I failed midway in the day. And then I had classes before doing work and then doing homework. And then I went to Rashia where Alan and I fought some more and we had a very frustrating conversation. Because from my perspective, he was just being dumb. There are such fundamental metaphysical truths that you can't go lower. I can't prove it to you, but it seems really obvious. It sounded like to me at least, he was denying the equivalent of 2 + 2 is 4. That's how I felt like it was saying. And I think he felt I was doing the same, but it's still immensely frustrating. How do you convince someone 2 + 2 is 4? Can't you just tell? I believe in you. 2 + 2 is 4. You can do it. It was immensely frustrating. Anyway, I have our whiteboards. Once we called it quit for that conversation, I went home, watched a bit of anime before going home and sleeping. The next day was just a normal school routine. I then watched The Promised Neverland with Benj after the school routine. And when we got about halfway through, then went out and played Pokemon Go on our rollerblades because that's more efficient than walking. But it got pretty cold. However, it was a good time. Once we got home, we didn't really have time to finish the anime, so we decided to join Ben and do a tiny bit more Pokemon Go in the car before calling it a night. I know Benj and Ben stayed up doing some stuff, but I went to bed for that. And I got really car sick, though, too, in the car. It was bad. The next day, I finished my bass piece with the 4th, well, it's on the 5th try, but 4 tries under my belt. And then I got some math tutoring. I went home for anime and food, and then I did the usual school stuff. I then had a brief respite at home before going to get CPR certified. However, they canceled, so I was late. See, I technically have to get CPR certified to work in the HPCRL, which sounds almost like CPR. Interesting. But I've been working out there for 6 months without being certified, so it's Well, if you cared this much, you would have had me get certified before I went, and not waited 6 months to demand I get certified. But whatever, I showed up to the training digitally, and it was canceled, so that was a bit of a bummer. And then since the training was canceled, I headed back home and I hung out with Neo and Sydney, at which point I was pleased to discover Neo had finally finished unpacking all the boxes he had from moving in, which took a while, but he got it done. Then we watched some Patient Moriarty, and both, like Neo and Sydney, seemed to be liking it quite a bit. And then I went to Magic Club and went to sleep at 1. The following Tuesday was an occasion of the pre-me for the ECE, the class I failed last semester, so I was very determined to get a perfect score this time. However, despite triple-checking my work, I did not get a perfect score. Instead, I got one question wrong, just like the semester before, so I was discouraged. I then had a long time to chill at home before going back to school, and I took the measurement test we talked about before. And it was during this test that one girl, Leanne, randomly came up and decided to work with me. She was like, "Can I work with you?" And I was like, "Cool." And ever since then, she's been really friendly, like suspiciously friendly. So perhaps I'm wrong. My current theory is she likes me. Now, to be fair, the number of girls I know to have liked me at this point is exactly 2. And if I'm right, that would take it up to 3, which is a 66% increase in the number of girls that have liked me. And, of course, that is disturbing, but also flattering. Flattering because, I mean, like, let's be honest, who doesn't want to be seen as attractive? But disturbing because, like, that's deeply inconvenient. And I don't know how to deal with situations. The few of you that remember how I dealt with the last time a girl told me she liked me, will know what I'm talking about. And we are not, you can't find that. You would have to dig. You will not be able to dig. You'll never find that information. Anyway, I try to play it cool, classic apathetic anime character. And ironically, I actually try to find a picture of the classic apathetic anime character, like with the hands behind the back, as they walk, and like the classic, like, almost like they're falling backward walk. But I couldn't find one. I spent like 10 minutes trying to find a good picture, and I couldn't do it. So I just kind of abandoned the idea, and now you won't get a picture. Anyway, I think my method worked fairly well. Regardless, it was kind of necessary to be relayed back because she was really uptight. So it was kind of like a balance. But we managed to get work done, and like I said, we got 70, so we didn't do great. But I still think I navigated the situation fairly well. However, there was one other moment worth noting, which was where she would, like, start a conversation. She was like, after she asked me to team up, she was like, "Hey, can I ask you something, Per?" And then at that exact moment, she was cut off by one of the mech guys being like, "Everybody, come save the road!" And so, as we all know, to blave means to bluff. And so you were playing a game of cards, and you cheated. And I know that quote doesn't make a ton of sense, but it makes sense. Deep down, you know it does. Anyway, so, as you all know, can I ask you a Per? Sounds like, can I ask you a personal question? Which further means I was literally saved by the bell. Because, in this case, they actually do ring a bell before they give the announcement. So there you have it. The closest thing I've come to a romantic interest, not my romantic interest, but someone's, like, a romantic life, I guess, since my accidental dating. She's probably going to ask me if I was single. Or maybe she was just going to say, "Can I ask you professional advice?" I don't know. Anyway, that happened. After that, I then went to work, did voice training with Sydney, hung out with her and Neo, and then both of them came over to the engineering building while I did CAD work and then did teaching stuff. Once I got that done, I came back, and Neo and I built Legos, which was actually really fun. Sure, I use big boy toys now, but, like, Legos are still great. And here's what I made. You can't see it. It's a Bionicle Man. And Neo made the sword and the shield. I made the shield, Neo made the sword, so it's not like my finest build by any means. The shield was also really rushed. But it was fun. And I thought that, like, the Bionicle's torso was actually really good, because building a custom torso for a Bionicle is actually really hard to do. So I'm pretty happy with that card. And during the whole time we were building Lego, Neo and I just had this, like, absolutely meaningless and interesting conversation. The conversation went like something like this. Me. "So, how about those murder hornets?" Neo. Yeah. I feel like they could use a bit more sauce. Me. I agree. But what flavor? Neo. Pie flavor. Me. Yeah. And yeah, that's like how the conversation went. Like, it had no logical train, but it was super fun. Like, I don't know when I started having these sorts of, like, ludicrous conversations where the intention is to derail all trains of thoughts, but looking back, I can think of quite a few occasions where I've had similar talks, and it's just something I do, and I actually really enjoyed it. And we did it for like 3 hours, too. So yeah, after we finished that, I went home and went to sleep. The following day, I worked on training for the work at HPCRL. See, unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to be commandeered to become a data entry minion, which is a mega no bueno, because that means my consistent lack of work weather front that I've been experiencing for thus a long time on my balmy desk is about to shift to a very frigid, always work storm, which, as you know, is not good for one's health. After that, in the gap between my school and work, I did some small stuff I needed to do. Then after all the school and work stuff was done, I went over to CSU with Ben and did some Pokemon Go. Then upon getting back, I had Yum Yums with the family to celebrate my birthday. Woot woot, I am now 22. And then upon watching an anime movie called Garden of Words, which was so-so in plot, but glorious in animation, we then went to the summit to play laser tag. And as it turns out, I had read their deal wrong, and it's not on the day of the whatever day it was that you get the good deal. Rather, it was $18 for unlimited laser tag instead of like 10 per person. And so we all were like, that's overpriced. It was also unlimited laser tag and bowling, though, so that's so important. But then, in an attempt to appease the people, because we're all like, what do we do now? Dad was just like, I'm going to make an executive decision. And so we bought a bowling lane for an hour, which, when you counted Jewel rental, turned out to be about $16 a person. So ironically, we spent the same amount of money, or just about the same amount of money, for 1 hour of bowling instead of unlimited bowling, unlimited laser tag, and a $10 gift card. So, yeah. However, I kept that information myself, because being right is not worth making people feel dumb. And, wow, I just said that sentence. I do mean that sentence, in select cases. When this is not in this, I'm just going on this now. So, when it's the case that the truth is relevant and impactful, then it is worth telling them. But not because you're being right, necessarily, but because you being right means that they'll make better decisions in life. So it's really kind of like a selfless right, but there's a little bit of a selfish right in there because you're being right's great. But in the cases where it's like, well, you already bought the ticket, can't do anything about it now, why would you bother telling them? Like, why would you be like, look at you, you paid the same amount for 1 hour bowling as you could for an unlimited bowling, unlimited laser tag, and a $10 gift card. Like, it's just not worth it. So I have a kind bone in my body. I'm not completely conceited, I hope. Anyway, Morgan was there, and the family, and we played bowling. It was great. I ended up winning, though Mom was actually really good and very close. I was very concerned for my title for a bit there. And it was a pretty good time. Good time to spend with them, you know. Once I got home, I then went on a rollerblade, listening to music, and I really do enjoy those rollerblades. They are very quality, and I haven't done very many as of late, so, you know, it was refreshing. And the next day was Saturday, and I was supposed to have morning philosophy, and I did, but I thought it was at 9, not 8, so I ended up being like an hour late, which was a bummer. However, I did make it for some of the talk, and it was decent. However, I felt like I wasn't totally understood, so I worked on philosophy afterward, like, flesh out my ideas. After finishing that, I then went and ate croissants and watched anime, which is peace itself, with Neo and Sydney, and then afterward went to Ratio Christie for fun, as there was a Saturday night activity planned by Ratio. And see, the sad thing is that For Fun's laser tag got immensely nerfed. Like, it was actually so lame. Back in my day, the whole arena was full. There were, like, multiple levels, sphinxes you could shoot. It was epic. But now there's, like, 2 little towers and a big open room. Like, actually so much worse. However, we'd all, you know, bought the Game Pass, so there's nothing to be done. Like, it's not like, well, we reject your laser tag. Refund our Game Pass. So, yeah. Anyway, we tried to make the best of it. We played around 6 games or so, and I may have had the highest score in every game. A laser tag is my jam. But, honestly, I probably had the most fun in the team round, even though we didn't win, just because it was super fun. The other thing is that For Fun had the Minecraft game, so we got to play that, and Neo totally got into it, which is great. It's like a top-notch game as far as arcade games go. Like, whoever designed it was big smart. So yeah, we did laser tag interspersed with Minecraft arcade games, and then people started hitting out. And honestly, I was pretty surprised how quickly people bailed. Like, you have unlimited laser tag till close, but people are leaving after like 3 rounds. You still have like 4 hours you could stay. And then Neo and Alan were like, we should leave too. But then, you know, the value maximizers and Sydney and I convinced them to do a round of mini-go, because we're like, we have not paid for $18 worth of material. We did like 5, 7, I don't know, rounds of laser tag. We need to do a game of mini-golf. So I tried to hype up the competitive atmosphere to add intrigue to just hitting a ball with a stick, because, you know, that's all it is. And I think I succeeded. However, this was actually so dumb. I lost in the end by literally 2 points. Like, the whole time I thought Alan, Neo's friend Alan, by the way, was like miles ahead of me. Like, he was crushing me. But at the end I found out, no, I was just 2 points behind. So maybe if I'd like known that, I would have tried harder and won. Who knows? But in the end, you know, it was worse, because it's always worse when you're like, wow, I lost by a tiny margin, than like getting crushed. Anyway, Sunday I went to church in the morning, I played some Magic at the lunch bunch, and then I attended Star Wars D&D, where I had an epic sniper moment, and I felt really cool. And then I hung out with John, and we played some Magic games, and then we went on a drive through Mr. Canyon, which was one of the few times I've had a really good conversation with him. So that was good. Once we got back, I then headed back home and helped Grace with math, because she needs help with math. The next morning, I started the cycle over again. I went in for math torture, not tutoring, torture, mind you. I learned some stuff. I then went home for food and anime, did work school, more work, and then CPR training, which was done via videos. And then I went to Ratio, where Al and I once again tried to sort out the very fundamental stuff. But it was, once again, maximally frustrating. Like, painfully frustrating. I felt like I was hitting my head against a whiteboard, or a brick wall, whiteboard. Hurts my soul. Oh, and then a very big thing happened. See, remember Sydney? The online writing friend Sydney, not Neo Sydney? Well, she finally sent me a face reveal. Like, I'd pushed her for like 5 years, and she was like, no. But then out of the blue, she's just like, you want to watch this speech I did? And I was like, is it a video? And she's like, it's a video. And I was like, wait, for real? And I was a little bit wary, because like last time she said, I'll give you a face reveal, and she just sent me a picture of an anime character that was supposed to be modeled off her, but it didn't look like her. And so I was like, is this legit? But it actually was legit, and she really gave me a face reveal. And I will tell you, it's a trippy experience to see your friend of a face, the face of a friend, where you had not seen, like, ever. Like, I've been friends with her for like 6 years, never seen her face. So it's like you build this mental image of a person without intending to do so, and then like when you actually see them, that mental image just goes like, you're like, that's not them. The mental image is them. So I'm not gonna lie, like my mental image was very Aryan, like blonde hair, blue eyes, like, yep, Sydney is not that. She's much more like pseudo Asian, and actually really pretty. So yeah, I kind of was expecting nerds to be on like the average side of looks, so I mental imaged accordingly, but I was just wrong. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. Of course, I then gave a face reveal in return. She was like, "Yeah, you look nerdier than I expected." And I was like, "Yeah, that's fair. Look, not all of us can have Joe's shoulders, okay? Look, I'm also pretty sure they're trademarked at this point. So anyway, it was exciting. I look forward to meeting her in person someday." The following day, we did all the normal things, and by we, I mean me. I then worked on preparing myself for my ECE exam before doing CAD work, and then I finished learning how to use surfaces, and it's actually really cool. I can basically model anything. Like any 3D complex shape, like doesn't have fixed geometry, like I can do it. Well, at least, get an approximation. I then did work where I finished HPCRL training videos on CPR, which did actually teach me some things, so that was kind of cool. And then, since it was Tuesday, we did the typical Tuesday night things. But then, since I pushed for it, we went out and did non-typical Tuesday night things, which was CSU Magic. False. CSU Pokemon. The change in pace itself was good, so I enjoyed that. But the event that really was good was we had this brilliant idea to chain off of Caleb Studer. See, Caleb, not having rollerblades, decided to rent a powered scooter, like the electric ones, on campus. And so the other three of us, except for Noah, all did have rollerblades. And so one of us was like, we should just catch a ride in a scooter. And at that point, all of us were like, and we had the same thought at the same time. And we were like, we got to make a train. So that's Noah put his scooter away, and we all hopped on Caleb's scooter. So Caleb and Noah double scootered, and then Joe hung on to Noah, and I hung on to Joe, and Ben hung on to me, and then we just all trained across campus, powered by Caleb's one scooter. And it was fantastic. Like, that scooter was a champ. Those things have so much torque. We did have a few wrecks in the process, but no one was seriously hurt. However, at the tail end, we did have a more serious wreck, and so we kind of were like, we probably maybe shouldn't do this. But it was still so much fun. Like, the kind of stuff I wish we did more often, because it was memorable and different, and it was fun because of the people, not just like an activity that entertains us. It sucks with our life spirits. Anyway, it was really good. And once we got back, we ran out the night with some Brawlhalla, but, given the fact that we'd done something eventful and fun, I didn't mind that at all. The next day was big cold, nearly as cold as the day the frost and chill blessed the Lord. However, the day before, it was basically like universally known throughout the school that it was going to be a snow day. Like, everyone was like, it's a snow day tomorrow. And then it just wasn't, which honestly is just the worst. Like, you would 100% expect a snow day, and then nothing happened, which just mega sad. I'm still salty that it wasn't the snow day. Especially because there was a snow day the one day after school started. That was so dumb. Why not call a snow day when it's literally 10 below? Who decides these things? So yeah, it was a snow day. Nope, it wasn't a snow day. And I was like, well, you know what? You don't control me. And so I took my own snow morning in response. Basically, I had a relaxing vibe session with Grace next to the fire, and it was really nice. Grace had a hard time getting into the instrumental music, but, I think she would benefit from it. And in the future, she said that if she was listening to music she knew well, she might do it more. Regardless, it was a great way to spend the morning. I then did all the stuff. I once again showed up for the in-person CPCRL, CPRL training, and they canceled it again. And that was a real bummer, because without CPR certification, they're like, we can't give you keycard access. And so I kept having to go to the door and be like, can someone let me into my work, please? So anyway, once I got home, I watched I Want to Eat Your Pancreas with the family, and basically it's an anime movie about a girl who has pancreatic cancer, and this guy falls in love with her, and that's how all the anime movies go, until she dies. And honestly, I wasn't so sad. She was kind of annoying and pushy. So we were all kind of like, yeah, it's okay, she died. So yeah, it wasn't that great a movie, but I've watched it now. And then afterward, I went to Magic Club and was there till late. The next morning was actually so cold. Like, the coldest I've ever seen Colorado. I think it was negative 18 below. Like, I normally have to bike to classes, and so the wind chill, would actually just freeze off my lips. Like, before I got, mini frostbite between classes. So I decided to skip class that first morning, because I was like, this could be a hazard to my health, and I don't really want to go in that weather. It's so cold. So I just didn't go to school. However, one of the things was that one of the classes was already canceled, so that was nice. And, in college, you can choose if you go to class or not. However, I did not just watch anime. I actually did 2 hours of study for my DiffQ midterm, and then I watched anime for an hour. But then eventually I went over campus and did CAD work until my EMEC lab. And around this time, I started to feel a squeeze for my clock project, because I have a clock project that's due 2 weeks from this point. And I'm going to explain that, never mind. See, the clock has 3 pieces, a brass, a steel, and an aluminum piece. And as I already mentioned, I had done quite a few tries to get that brass piece done. And I only had 2 more weeks to go. So I was like, 2 pieces in 2 weeks, and one of the pieces took me a month? That's scary. So yeah, anyway, after work I took my DiffQ test, and that was hard. At the start of it, even though I'd studied 2 hours before, I just kind of froze up. I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. But thankfully, around the third way through the time, I was like, okay, things are clicking. And I started to get stuff done. So I was able to push through it, and I was actually working to the very last minute. As were a lot of other people. And everyone did garbage. Our average was a 63. And I got a 70, which was above 75% of the class. I was beyond the 2 standard deviations. Not the damage, sanity deviation. It's the 2... It's 75%. There's box and whisker plot, whatever the 2 gaps are. Anyway. But still, it's a 70. So, I was like, whoa, that's not great. I did get curved to an 80 later, but, that's still bad, so what can you do? I then came home to relax and found a fire burning with Mom having made sugar-free cake, which is great. And it was just super relaxing. Like, I spent the rest of the night just building a magic deck. It was really nice. The next day at the EMEC, I, for reals, finished my brass piece, because before I had all the dimensions finished, but I started, like, sanding and chamfer and stuff like that. Chamfer. I then worked on CAD stuff and went home for food, and then I tried to go to work, but this time I couldn't open the door because I didn't have keycard access and no one let me in. So I just spent like 30 minutes trying to get in, and then I was eventually like, Kaizen, one of my coworkers, can you please help me? And she helped me in. So yeah, I felt bad because there was like a pile of people at the front door waiting to be let in, which is my job. Like, I'm supposed to let them in, but what could I do? I'm locked out too. So I think it's pretty dumb to be like, hey, person, go make sure people can get in, but we won't give you a key to get in yourself. So like, kind of my fault, but really not. Anyway, after that I went to Dynamics class, and I hung out with Neo for like a while. And we played a lot of game Magics. And then I walked around and talked. Oh, we played like 2 games of Magic, that's false. Until like 5. I hung out with Neo until like 5. And then I talked with William, the Great. And he basically had sort of a bunch of philosophical questions he wanted to ask me. And so we went through them one by one. And that manager's the best. Like, with the exception of William, no one ever asked me philosophical questions that are on their mind. Like, I'm pretty sure they know that I know things. And I have generated probably decent answers. But no. Like, I used to find that really annoying. Because I was like, why are people so dumb? But now I've realized that the dumber people are, the less work it is for me. Like, if no one's taking advantage of my knowledge set, I don't have to explain things, which is a lot easier. But still, like, you would think, I'm like a philosophy encyclopedia, a nerd who's devoted his life to this profession, but no one's like, wow, I have existential questions. I could ask Alex. So, not necessarily advertising it, because now I'm lazy, I'm work adverse, allergic to work. I mean, no, okay, that's fair. If you ask me questions, I'll 100% share my knowledge with you. I'm just saying, like, there is benefits to not having people asking questions, because it means you don't have to work. Anyway, yep, William's amazing. He's a great man. And, he's a good dude. So yeah, that was good. We caught up a bit too also. And then, after he had to go, I met up with the Jameses. I met up with Ben at the Jameses, wherein we played Magic and did that while I was watching a movie. I then got home from that and watched a very good slice of life anime, which ended up making a 9 rating. So that's my 6-9 out of 114 anime I've completed, which is quite an achievement. We don't want to talk about how the 114 anime is quite an achievement. The next morning was Saturday. Not going to lie. It was, not going to lie. It's the case that the good anime kind of sucked me in a bit. But regardless, I did get stuff done. I did things like laundry and cleaning and stuff. But the tail end of that, I started feeling sick, so I was a bit sad. Thus, I took a nap. And that's how I know I'm sick, because if I can actually fall asleep when I take a nap, I really am sick, so I can't take a nap otherwise. I then took it easy for the rest of the day. More anime. And then Mom and I watched this super dumb alien time travel movie. And see, I have a problem. I compulsively watch time travel movies. Like, if they're done right, time travel movies can be so cool. Like, maximally cool. But the thing is, it's never done right. In fact, the very fact the movie's premise is time travel almost guarantees it will be garbage. However, every time, without fail, I'm always like, maybe this one will be different. And only twice have I been right about that. So, those movies were fantastic. And that's why I keep coming back, because I'm like, maybe I'll find another one of those. But so far, I just haven't. And, maybe there's one I haven't seen yet. But I assure you the movie Mom and I watched was not it. Like, pure garbage. I actually do not know how those movies get funding. Like, live movies are just bad in comparison to anime movies. But this was bad in comparison to other live movies. Blech. The next morning was almost entirely Magic deck building. I wasn't feeling great, so I just took the whole day to walk through cards and watch anime. And honestly, it was really weird to take the whole day not doing much. Like, I'm always doing so many things. But being sick gave me the first break I've had in ages. It was kind of nice. Like, maybe I should get sick more often. At one point in the day, I took a meandering blade around City Park, since the weather was really nice. And then I watched 86, which is an anime with Mom, and she really liked the show. It's a really good show. And then I went to sleep at like 10 or so, because I was tired. Next morning was a Monday, and since I didn't have to get early, I didn't have to get up early, I didn't. I then went to work and school, but I, felt crummy, so that kind of sucked. Once I got home, I just kind of collapsed. I then looked through every single Magic artifact in the entire game, which is a very tedious task. It's so many pages of documents. And then I had my mini birthday celebration because I turned 22 for reals. Because the celebration before was like a celebration, but this was like the actual day. Anyway, it was decent. Mom gave me some cash, which I used to fund my Ultimate Magic deck. And then she gave me a desk too, which has actually been fantastic. A really good birthday gift, honestly. And it was a chill birthday. Yep, not much happened. I watched a bit of anime before I went to bed. I felt sick the next day, but nevertheless a bit better. I went to classes, got home early, worked on my Ulta deck some, and then did math, and did some CAD work in the lab before going to the Jameses, since I was like operable. I wasn't feeling good, but I was like, I can function. We played some Magic, did a bit of Brawl, and then we split into Pokemon and world building groups, and I actually had such a good time world building. Like, using your imagination to come up with fictional races, peoples, cultures, etc. is so much fun. Like, one of the funnest things I've done in ages. So, yeah, once people got back, we did Magic until people got back. Not Magic, we did world building. Well, actually, in that particular case, I was part of the Magic group, but the world building is relevant because I had a nice time. Anyway, when we got back, once people got back, we did a high power deck game wherein Joe played his CH deck and Bench played his half CH deck, and I played my blue deck, and I lost almost every time, but one time I won. The next morning, I spent time working on my aluminum clock base, and I didn't mess up, so that was good. I then booked tickets for New Zealand, technically Australia, but that's how I get to New Zealand, to Australia in this case, and I got a really good deal. I was also feeling mostly right at this point in time. So the rest of the school day was pretty normal. I then hung out with Neo and showed him A Silent Voice, which is the best movie ever. Probably my favorite movie at this point in time. It's a true masterpiece. Like, even if you're not an anime fan, like, it's fantastic. Neo gave it a 9, and he doesn't like anime. Like, it's just so good. After that, Neo and I just 1v1 in Magic until, like, 12. The next day was Thursday, which started off with the ECE midterm. Now, if you will remember, this is the class I am retaking. So, last semester, I just died. And, despite thinking I'd do well, I got, like, a 50 on the first test. So, as you might expect, that was, like, a really big deal, this test, because if I fail this again, like, I don't get another chance. So I was pretty tense, and honestly, walking away, I was pretty sure I got like a 60 or 70. However, I actually got a 91. Like, it was so epic. I was so surprised, like, way more than anyone. I'm not complaining, but I was surprised. Like, that's a fantastic score, because the cast average is like a 64. Like, such a blessing. Especially because, like, I could have done so much worse. Once I saw that, I did double take, because I was like, there's no way I got a 91. I literally got a 91. So take that, ECE! Of course, I didn't know that wonderful fact yet, so I walked away being like, oh no, I failed. And then I had Mech 200A, and I did that, and then I did chores at home, and I attended the Mech Lab, where I got a tutorial on how to use an acetylene torch, which I don't consider myself a pyromaniac, but I must say, when the fire starts going, like, I am noticeably more attentive. Like, there's an inherent, like, guy thing in me that's like, fire! And so, yep, I was very attentive to that lab demo. I'm going to use that. I get to wield fire in my hands. It's going to be cool. After that, I did work stuff, and I watched for Sydney's for voice training, but turned out she had teacher things to do. So I had like 2 hours to kill, and so I saw the fenced off area, and I was like, I want to get in there now. And I can almost guarantee that if the goalie hadn't been fenced off, I wouldn't want to go in. But, because it was fenced off, it was like begging me to invade it. So yeah, I then wandered through the fenced off goalies, listening to instrumental music, and did that for like an hour and a half. And it was actually super duper nice. Like, this is the sort of thing I used to do all the time when I was younger, and really since I came, well, before I came back to the US, I used to do all the time. Like, I go around Hamilton streets and wander and listen to music, and it was great. But, like, I haven't done that since. So it was kind of a blast from the past, and I determined I should really do it more, because it was just so refreshing. Like, I really, really enjoyed that time. And I know it's kind of dumb, but activities like that are just so much more rewarding to me than things that, like, should objectively be more interesting. Like, I don't know. Like, video games are boring compared to that. Like, I would rather do this than laser tag, in a lot of cases. Like, it's just a good time for me. Also, I got to read a lot of interesting graffiti under bridges. And people who do graffiti, unsurprisingly, really don't like cops. Just gonna say it. So yeah, I spent a good chunk of the time walking through the goalies and listening to chill music. And then I got a Wendy's burger because I was hungry and like, why not? And then Sydney and Neo finally got home from the teacher things, and at that point it was like 8 or something, so I decided we'd like not do voice training. And partially because my voice hadn't recovered, and partially because it was late. I then talked with Sydney, and then she joined me to do work over at the engineering building. We did our respective tasks. I didn't get things done all the way, but I could tell she was feeling done, so I called her early. Then we headed back and played this Fireboy Water Girl equivalent game. And it was a lot of fun. It was like a teamwork puzzle game. And I, had a good time. And then I went home and I slept. The next morning, I tried to go to the EMEC for work on my parts, but every machine was taken. And there was a line. So I ended up just coming home. And I felt pretty sick to my stomach that day. I think probably because I was like, oh no, I have a week. And I have to get 2 parts done. And I couldn't even get on a machine. And I think that's dumb. That, like, people can just rush in there and take the machines before you. So, yeah, that was stupid. Anyway, I took a bath, and then I watched some anime to calm myself down. I felt bad for that. I then did school things and skipped my dynamics into the Q classes in hopes that by skipping the classes, people would be in the classes, and so there would be a available machine, but there wasn't. So that super sucked. I then instead went to the ground floor of the engineering building and got my CAD work done, and I checked in again to see if there's machined again, and still there was nothing. So I was like, well, guess I just have to go home. So that's what I did. I then spent the rest of the day working on my Ultimate Magic deck before going to sleep. The Saturday morning was a philosophy morning, so I had a vexing talk with Matt about truth making, and I have a hard time communicating with Matt in general, but this was just death. It was kind of like, yeah, this clearly isn't profitable. We've kind of agreed on that. But, I said it in, like, a nice way. Then around 1:30 in the afternoon, I finished my Ultimate Magic deck and ordered the cards. From there, I went to go see Grace's play, which was pretty bad overall, I'm not going to lie. But I did like last two numbers some. And there was this one kid that just full sent it. He was like committed, and it was great. See, Grace was like the classic, like, I'm kind of embarrassed, I'm doing it quietly. And I was like, ah. But this one kid, he was like bawling for the girl. It was like, yes, you may be a garbage actor. Your voice might sound horrible, but you at least committed. I value your commitment, small kid. Live on, man. Live on. Mom then got me a Wendy's burger on the way back, and once I got back, I got to work assembling the desk that Mom bought me, which I actually really enjoyed that process. It was like big Legos. Thereafter, I cleaned and reorganized stuff and put stuff in the desk and stuff like that. And then I watched a show Mom liked with her and the family before I head over to Neo's to play some more of the Fireboy and Water Girl game with Sydney, and that was the day. The next day was pretty standard Sunday stuff, church, magic, D&D, and then I went to a mandatory Allen party. I didn't have to go, actually, Allen's mandatory party. But ironically, I was the only one who showed up. So yeah, we just kind of played some Halo until Neo and Sydney were persuaded to come. And then once we got there, we played a game of Catan, and Sydney won the game. Once I got home, Ben spontaneously invited me for a drive, and so we did that. And we talked, and it was good. Monday, I woke up really early to try and take a spot on the machines in the EMEC, but there were already 11 people there, even though I woke up like 20 minutes more early than it opens. And then as I waited, 10, probably 5 more people showed up. So the trouble is there's not like a line. Like, people don't acknowledge order of arrival. So like, first of all, with 11 people before me, there were 11 machines. So like, I probably wouldn't have got a machine anyway. But second of all, like, even if I had, people would just push past me. Like, the only way to get guaranteed machines is if you push harder or run. And like, I don't want to do that. That's not good. So yeah, I was like, well, guess I'm gonna leave again. And so that was like a sketch, like a, I don't know, like a, not sketch, but a tense morning for me. Because I'm like, I have 3-4 more days, and I have to get 2 parts done. But, you know, at the point I was like, well, I guess I'll just do a run and do quiet time, because now I have the free time. And so I kind of just resolved myself to my fate. I was like, if I get the clock project done, I get it done. I'll do my best, but I can't do more than that. And I kind of just realized I've been sacrificing all the things that are really important to me, like quiet time and exercise and, you know, prayer journals and stuff, just for school. But, like, I've taken this all or nothing dogmatic approach where it's like, well, if I can't do it right, I shouldn't do it at all. But, you know, if even in school, if sometimes, you know, circumstances make it so you can't do something, like, it's not like you're just like, well, guess I'll just fail the class now. You're like, no, I gotta get the best grade I can get. Like, I can still make odd gaps work and stuff. So, yeah, it just kind of reminded me that, like, given circumstances beyond your control doesn't mean you give up on your goals. It means you do the best you can. So, I got a bit of a mature perspective from that. I'm going to try and fix that after spring break ends here. Okay, give me a second. I then watched some Magic the Gathering videos about the rules, and now I understand the technical rules a lot better. I then had classes work, and I finally found out my ACE grade was fantastic, so that was much better. After that, I then went to Ratio, where Alan and I started a conversation. We didn't get to finish it because we were told to rejoin the group for an announcement, which never happens. No one ever tells us to do that. And so I didn't get whiteboard pictures. But basically, Noah just announced to the whole Ratio group that he was super addicted to porn. And, like, he needs to fix this area of his life, and so he's going to drop everything and just try and break free of this addiction. Which, honestly, is a super cool move. Like, very gutsy and respectable. However, I'm not really sure the Ratio group, like, deserved that level of honesty and vulnerability. Like, I don't know if it was greatly received. But, like, either way, after that, me and Alan couldn't very well be like, well, let's go back to talking about if cats are themselves. And on that serious, like, if someone's like, I have a monumental sin that, and I'm the leader of this group, I have a monumental sin I need to go deal with, I'm leaving, you guys be like, okay, cool. Now, do cats exist as themselves, or do they exist as a not themselves? Like, you can't go back to that. So, anyway. Instead, me and Alan decided to call it there, and I took a car drive with Trip Noah and caught up with him, and we talked about some stuff, so that was good. The following Tuesday, I had ECE, but not Mech 100, or 200A, which meant that I got to work in the lab instead of being in class, which is very good because I actually got a machine. It was the one available machine. Then Alan messaged me through Discord during classes, and because we didn't finish the debate, and so he's like, we should debate about this, and so I started talking with him, and then I ended up debating with him the next 3 hours while classes were going on. So in other words, I didn't pay attention at all. I didn't learn any DiffyQ or do any CAD work. So it was just very poor time management. Then once again, since it was Tuesday, I went to Joe's and we did Magic. We did world building. That was the world building I really enjoyed. And people played Pokemon, and then, yeah, it was fantastic. I got math tutoring Wednesday morning, did all the school things, aced my CAD work, whoo, I'm a pro, and I felt really cool because I was able to model some really cool stuff. And then I spent the rest of the day at Magic Club where I appointed some random, you know, dude to leadership. I was like, you want to be in leadership? Yeah! I'm just kind of hoping I might be able to convince him to take president's position because he's actually enthusiastic. I'm like, no one's enthusiastic. So yeah, next morning I did math, rode in the car that Ben got lent to him from Toyota because he got hired by Toyota to do an animation for them. And honestly, it wasn't that cool of a car. Like, it's new, it's modern, so it's cool by comparison to the cars we drive, but it's not like cool. I then ate food and watched anime before going to our math tutoring and then doing my EMEC lab and getting some work done on my clock basis. I had a work day. Then I had work, and I went over to Neo and Sydney's, and then I played this voice game with Sydney called One Hand Clapping, which was actually really fun. After that, I did the usual food and anime thing, and I ate so many jalapeno peppers with Neo. Like, so many. After that, I brought over my Magic card bulk, and we just looked through each other's bulk and kind of like traded cards. And man, Neo had some seriously good cards. Like, he only plays in white and green, and so the other cards just were fantastic. Like, I got some really good cards from that. I definitely got the better of the deal. The next morning I slept in, did some quiet time, and then I got some more training on how to do data entry at the HPCRL, which again is mega sad because it means I'm going to not, get my days of being paid for not doing any work anymore. After that, I didn't really pay attention to dynamics because it was like on the cusp of spring break, and I was like, I'm just going to do my homework instead, so I don't have to do that once I leave classes. And then I skipped math class, and I went to the EMEC. And I found a machine open, so I was able to get work done on that. Once I got home, I don't remember exactly why, but I started chatting with ChatGPT. And to be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed. Like, I don't know, it was talked about as this like hyper-intelligent, all-knowing, perfectly writing AI. But it's giving me some false information, and like, I'm impressed, but not that impressed. So, I don't know. I asked enough questions, though, that it kicked me out. It was like, you've exceeded your time question limit for the hour. And I was like, that's fair. I then got food with Mom and Grace before going over to Neo's again, and then finishing looking through his bulk, and then spending basically the rest of the time just revising all my decks and putting the bulk that I took from him into my decks, which took like until night. The next morning I woke up and got a bit of work done on this live email. I then went to the EMEC for the reservation-based work session that some of the TAs were generous enough to put together, and I absolutely crushed it. Like, for those 4 hours, I worked so efficiently, I didn't make a single mistake. Like, I cannot believe how smooth it went. And to my amazement, I was able to finish my entire clock in those 4 hours. Like, that was the last chance, too. Like, I can maybe have done it tomorrow. And one other day other than that. But, like, I can't believe I got it done. It was such a relief to get that done. I felt like a total beast. I then worked on writing this left email and did magic with Ben. Not Ben, Benj. And, I played a alternate version of my ultimate deck, but he just crushed me because the ultimate version was stacks and his cards did not get hit by stacks. And then we finished watching The Promised Neverland, which Ben ended up rating it as a 9, which is justifiable. Like, it is a good anime. After that, we went over to Joe's, and then we played Magic until... Oh, no, I went over to Joe's, and then I played Magic until like 2:40 in the morning, which, technically due to the time change, was 3:40, which apparently is the last spring forward that'll ever exist. You know that? Like, I think they're stopping that after this one. Like, there won't be a fallback, as far as I know. So that's monumental. But yeah, I stayed up till 2:40 because I could. It was kind of like a spring break flex. It's like, yeah, I'm on spring break. I can stay up as late as I want. The next morning, though, I slept in because I stayed up till 2:40. So I came late to church. However, I did get to play Magic. Though to my disappointment, the ultimate deck I created did not seem to perform so well. Then after church, I taught John how to change his oil on his car, and we ended up actually flushing his coolant as well, but it all took so long because I was dumb and didn't think to check his car if it needed like other fluids before I went to Walmart. So we went to Walmart, got the coolant, came back and we're like, oh, well, we didn't get the coolant, we got the oil. We came back and we're like, oh, you need coolant. So we went to Walmart to get the coolant, but then I forgot to check if his car would need how much coolant. So we didn't get enough coolant, so we had to go back to Walmart a third time to get more coolant. So overall, it was like a 4 hour and 30 minute endeavor. And yeah, it was pretty exhausting. But by the sounds of it, we did it all right. And so that's good. Nothing worse than like a broken repair. That's the worst feeling. So yeah, I then did another 2 hours of work or so much on this life email before asking Joe to come over and vindicate my ultimate deck. So I was like, I really hope this ultimate deck doesn't actually perform as bad as it did before. And thankfully, it actually did a lot better. So it kind of lived up to my expectations. It was a fluke, apparently, the early performance. The next Monday, I was on spring break, so, freedom was real. And hence, we did a makeup D&D session from 12 at noon to 3 in the afternoon. I then hung out with Dad at Five Guys. Not at Five Guys, but, partially. And we caught up and talked, and then we played some ping pong. And I beat him in 2 of the 3 games, so that keeps me the championship. Though he did destroy me on the 3rd game. Like, I lost really badly. So maybe it's, like, equal. I then did more live emo work, and then drove to Loveland to hang out with Alan and Liam. And we watched an anime movie, during which, the time of that hangout, we decided to get these cookies from this mountain cookie place. And I got this, like, ice cream sandwich cookie, like, combo. And despite eating the cookie as slow as I could, the sugar still made me feel horrible. Like, I felt like actual garbage coming home. And, like, I'm not entitled to complaining because now I don't want to eat sugar. Because if it's going to make me feel like that, like, that's just not even enjoyable at all. But, still, I kind of wish I could have enjoyed the cookie more. And it was a good cookie. Like, don't get me wrong, it tasted good. However, overall the time was meh. Like, the conversations were pretty meaningless. It was kind of awkward. We watched this video about harem animes that was, like, definitely beyond my standards in a few ways more than one. And I asked them to stop it, but they either didn't hear me or didn't listen. So I just kind of, like, looked at my phone and tried not to listen to the show. So yeah, that was lame. But there was other good parts that I got. Like, don't get me wrong, it was still decent, but it just wasn't like great overall. Once I got home, I went to drive with Ben on his new fancy car, and we got to 120 miles per hour, so that was fun. And then I probably went to sleep. Yesterday, we did a tiny bit of live demo work before spending the literal entire day at Joe's house playing Magic. Literally 12 straight hours of Magic. I kid you not. And honestly, I kind of regret having spent that whole day doing that. But the past is the past, and I can't do anything about it anymore. And that's it. All of today. The entirety of today. It's literally 7. I started at like 10 in the morning. I have worked on this live email. It's a behemoth, man. I guarantee it took the record. Like, let's see how long this bad boy is. Yeah, by a landslide. Literally 17,500 words. That's actually so long. I did not intend to put off this long. I did not intend for this live deal to be so big. But I just got packed with school. I just didn't have time, like I usually do. So, yeah, regardless, I've done it. And you now have one chunky email. You are welcome, and I'll see you later.